All right, finally. I have to do the talk like this with the mic in my hand, but whatever. I like how Elon Musk is tweeting that he's gonna live stream the trip from the moon in VR, and we cannot connect a freaking microphone like three meters away. So my talk is not about that. I just wanted a joke for Michael Jackson's talk. That was really awesome. So before we start, everyone has their like superhero, right? One of these guys. This is my superhero lately. This guy. So he said, I made a 14 pages like a paper to explain how I'm gonna get rid of node modules. You know, this folder that everyone freaking hates. So he's my hero. But he made a 14 pages explanation for it. Isn't that like too much? If I made something that's amazing, removing node modules, I would name the pull request something like this. Yo, I got rid of node modules. Merge it. No review. Here's how millennials can save this space with one merge it. Or my favorite, more like no modules, am I right? Merge it. This is the most awesome pull request ever, and yet our awesome community replied with this. The font makes it unreadable on the paper. All right. We have an amazing community. So I took a little break from speaking this summer. I wanted to get my thoughts together and just compose some kind of a new talk. And my vision for the summer was I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna code, I'm gonna release something, I'm gonna make something awesome, whether it's open source or a product, whatever. I had a vision. This is me coding away, but the reality of my summer was something like this. And you may think, oh, he's sweating because he's coding and it's like hot outside. No, I wasn't sweating because of that. I was sweating because sometimes I tweet like really controversial things and then I get jumped by like 190 people explaining me that I'm wrong. So I read only 10 of the replies, but I'm pretty sure the rest of the 180 are just nice comments about me, my mom, whatever. It's just perfect comments. It's fine. So I want to defend this tweet a little bit because it connects to my next point. I don't think that we as developers currently we're in a state where we're a little bit broken. So whenever we're mentioning one of these words, everyone, like whoever is using the one thing, cannot stand someone mentioning the other thing. So it's really interesting because in my tweet I said like if we would start web development from scratch, like if nothing existed, and we decided, hey guys, how are we gonna do styling? Are we gonna go with an approach that looks like CSS in JS? We don't have to call it CSS in JS, where you have like all the styles and they're like tightly coupled to every element, and whatever you write, whatever you expect that's gonna happen to the element, it's gonna happen. Or are we gonna go with an approach where we have like this huge ass document with like 78 rules and then we're gonna pray that our element is gonna get the styles? I think a lot of developers are gonna say, I like the first one more. So I was aiming for that kind of, discussion, but we didn't get it at the end. But why am I putting this? Because in the rest of my talks, I usually start the talk with a bit of encouragement about how everyone should talk at meetups, everyone should talk at conferences, like speakers that are on the stage are nothing special and blah, blah, blah. And yet some of the replies here were like, you don't have enough empathy for beginners and so on, blah, blah, blah. So I felt a little bit bad because I'm really trying to do that before I start every talk. So I decided in this new talk, I'm still gonna do that small bit about the encouragement. So these are the three terms that I hate. We have Ninja Developer, Senior Developer, and Rockstar Developer, and we're gonna dissect them one by one. So we have Ninja Developer. Have you seen like a person on a roof coding Webpack or CSS or something? No, that's what ninjas do. Or we have Senior Developer. Like I don't know how many years or what's the definition or how do you get to this position where you put like senior in your LinkedIn or in your Twitter bio. For me, like Senior Developer can be only this guy, or lately I added this guy. He can also be a Senior Developer. Thank you. And the last one is the worst, like Rockstar Developer. People are like, have you seen a Rockstar? They have hair, a guitar, they're rocking some Wembley Stadium or something. So this is a Rockstar, this is everything but a Rockstar. Except the guy who removed node modules. He's the biggest Rockstar ever. Like that, he's the best. And then we have this term, he rocked or she rocked the stage after a talk. And I think a more accurate description, at least for my talks, would be this. Like, he didn't rock the stage. So what I'm trying to say, I'm trying to like encourage everyone to talk at conferences, meetups, and so on. Because at the end, we're just code monkeys trying to make weird libraries work together by writing shitty hacks. So, that being said, mi chiamo Kitze, I'm a ninja senior. No, I'm kidding. I love I love making products. I used to say that I love open source, but I like open sourcing things and not touching them ever. I have like 50 issues on every repo, and I love teaching. I have this thing, the React Academy workshop. You can find more info there. So this talk is better suited for the end of a conference, but I have to go soon, so we just put it now. This is your vision of yourself after the conference. You're like, oh, the organizers have drinks, we're gonna relax, we're gonna drink, it's gonna be awesome, but unfortunately, this is gonna be you after the conference. And why? Because someone mentioned something new about a router and you're still stuck with router 2.0. Or someone is gonna mention something about GraphGirl and you're like, we gotta refactor that REST API at some point, right? It's getting really old. So all the time with every talk, you're getting a little bit of insecurity about your code, your architecture, the libraries that you're using. So you're not gonna home at ease and be like, oh, that was an awesome conference. You're gonna be like, fuck, we need to refactor everything from scratch. So that's gonna be you, you're gonna be sweating, and this is gonna be me. Not because I don't feel this way, but because I have a flight soon, so I'm not gonna watch the talks. So the problem is FOMO. It's something called FOMO. It's the fear of missing out. And I just copied the Wikipedia description here, which is lame. So it's a pervasive apprehension that others might be having rewarding experiences from which one is absent. So every developer is suffering from FOMO in one or another way. Like everyone has their own version of FOMO. I have this. It's FOMO. So this is fear of mofos on Twitter tweeting dev stuff that you cannot find elsewhere. And this is a huge, huge problem for me because if you're not a Twitter user, how do you even work in development? Like for me, you can always find these tiny snippets in someone's reply of a reply of a reply, and Dan Abramov replies to a reply of someone. You're like, this is the secret to life. Like you always find these tiny snippets. You cannot find them on Reddit, you cannot find them on Medium, you cannot find them in a blog post. So I even now as I speak, I'm like, someone is releasing a library right now on Twitter and I'm missing it. So I have this fear of missing out. But why do we have it? Why do we have FOMO? Why do we have these different versions of FOMO? Without ourselves, without the code that we write, we're focusing on the wrong things, we obsess with the wrong metrics, we're the worst when it comes to this. We have a lot of free time and we love to procrastinate. So we're gonna go one by one and talk about this. So we focus on the wrong things and we obsess with the wrong metrics. I'm gonna give you an example. So I'm sitting with a friend, he started working with GraphGirl recently, and he's explaining to me like the server and every optimization that they made. He was like, we made the responses 0.2 milliseconds fast, so every time we're going through like 7 layers of cache, and anytime someone hits an endpoint, we're like instantly, and I lost him after the 5th word, but I'm like, yeah, I keep talking, and at the end I'm like, dude, what are you working on? Facebook? Like, why do you need such a fast backend GraphGirl, whatever you're doing? He's like, oh no, it's just a landing page for a hospital. Like there's not gonna be a situation where the nurse is like, doctor, we're losing the patient because our landing page is not fast enough. So why obsess with that stupid metric? A second example is we doubt ourselves and we doubt our code. And I think like everyone feels this. So raise your hand if you feel this way. I made something, it works and I think it's awesome, but I'm not sure if it's right. All the time, right? You need some kind of an external approval. But what will Dan think about? What will Michael think about this? I need someone to approve this awesome thing that I made. And we're going through this. But what is right and who is right? We don't have a definition of this yet. We're suffering from the FOMO that someone else might have the right information. Like lately in our crazy React community, you see like a couple of articles that are going to like extreme. So you see high order components suck and render props are everything, so we must refactor everything to render props. But I think we can just put this in the middle and we can find a healthy mix because I still use high order components and I still use render props, but there's a good spot to like use both of them. Or for like 3 years we need Redux for everything, and how quickly that went to Redux is dead, we can just replace it with a new context. What if I told you Redux is using context, but it also gives you like shit ton of things above context? So no, you cannot replace Redux with context. I think this should also be in the middle. You should find a use case for you, whether you should use Redux or whether you shouldn't use Redux. We all know that person who's always living on the bleeding edge, and they're like increasing our FOMO by being like, hey, you haven't tried Redux helicopters? It's amazing. It changed my life. And if you know me and if you know my tweets, you're like, aren't you that person? Because I sometimes am, but I'm making these jokes on Twitter, and some people get them seriously. They're like, is CoffeeScript in Babel really a thing? Because it might be, but it's funny because you can see that these people who reply and they think it's real, you can see their FOMO. They're like, we're missing out on something. You're not missing out on CoffeeScript for fuck's sake, but they're like, I'm missing out on something because there's this amazing solution. So before you follow someone else's advice, you gotta learn about their context. So if you wanna follow my advice, I gotta give you my context. So you gotta know a little bit about me. So I work alone. I don't work for clients. I'm not a freelancer anymore. So I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. I have all the time in the world to experiment. So I have time. I can try all of these libraries. And I'm gonna make a Christmas tree out of this slide. So would you trust a person that just randomly does this? Thank you. And yet, with all the free time I have and with all the freedom I have for experimenting, I'm still not blindly jumping into the latest and greatest. So a couple of popular examples. I don't know what's going on, sorry Michael, but I don't know what's going on in React Router above version 2. I don't know anything about Reach Router. I don't know, like, I mean, I know about these things, but I've never used them, and I don't feel the fear of missing out because right now I'm happy with the stack that I'm using, and I see tweets and articles, and like the future is WebAssembly, and you gotta use this service work and stuff. But I'm like, currently on my projects, I don't need them, so I don't feel the FOMO that I'm missing out on these technologies. So let's talk about FOMO, NOMO. How can we reduce the FOMO? You gotta recognize the breaking points whenever you wanna migrate to something, whenever you wanna use something new. There's gotta be a breaking point because otherwise you're gonna go crazy by just jumping from one thing to the other. So how can we recognize these breaking points? You gotta ask yourself, how easy is the migration from the one thing to the other thing? Is now the right time? And do I really need? And most of the time it's no, but you're gonna lie to yourself. So I moved from floats to flexbox. It wasn't easy. I had to learn this new syntax, which I still don't know properly. But it was the right time, and I really needed it. I wanted to center things in two ways without being a pain in the ass, so I knew that I had to migrate to this at some point. When I moved to Angular to React, it seems like I jumped to it, but it took me really a long time. I knew about React for maybe an year, and my colleagues were telling me, hey, if you move to React, I'm like, I know. I know it's amazing, I completely trust you, JSX is the hot new thing, I trust you. But right now, if I migrate in the middle of this client project, it's gonna be just a big mess. So I know that eventually I might move to React, but now is not the right time. REST to GraphQL. So these migrations should happen like slowly in your head. So step by step, every time I used a REST API and I was trying to combine like a couple of REST API calls together, I was like, this must be simpler. Like there must be a solution in the future that's going to allow us to combine these calls together instead of doing like 7 of them. So when I saw GraphQL, I was like, this is it, this is the solution. I see the breaking point, it's right here. And for my next project, I'm just going to try to convince the backend developers on the team to migrate to GraphQL because we really need it. But it wasn't the time, like in the middle of a project. And then I have this weird migration. I think nobody does this in the community. Who has done this migration? Anyone? There was one guy at another conference. Awesome, one more guy. So I moved from Gatsby to React Static. Why? Everyone loves Gatsby, like it's really popular, and I was using it for my landing page, so I wanted to fetch some data from a GraphQL endpoint and list all my workshops and stuff. But anytime you add a field to your backend in a table or something, in Gatsby you gotta change like 4 GraphQL queries in order to read that data into a page. And then you get that something is null, so the page is so every time I needed to change something on my landing page, I hated that thought in my head. I was like, oh my god, I have to touch Gatsby queries again just for one field in my GraphQL query. So I recognized the breaking point that this is really slowing me down working with Gatsby all the time. So I was like, next opportunity, this is a really easy migration because your React app stays the same. You're just changing the couple of files and you can run with React Static. And I saw the breaking point and I just moved to it, and now I can really easily update my landing page. So that's great. Then we have this one. So I started with CSS, then I adopted Sass, then I adopted BAM, and then when I realized I'm becoming Angelina Jolie by adopting all of these things, I adopted freaking everything. So I moved through all of this CSS and JS libraries, but it was not like whenever they announced the new thing, I didn't jump to it. So it took me a long time to actually get that I'm babysitting CSS by writing Sass and BAM. So I was like, literally, I'm just someone else can do this for me, like the computer can compute these styles for me. I don't want to use SAS and BAM together. Was tired of it. So when I saw Aphrodite for the first time, I was like, this is it, next project, I'm moving to this. Then I saw style components, and I was like, who in their right mind is gonna put styles in template literals? That looked crazy to me. But I tried it on a side project, and then I made sure that I put it into my next project because I saw that it makes me like 5 times faster when I was writing styles. And I saw it, and I was like, I can migrate to this. And then the problems begin with style components. Whenever you need some nested logic in those template literals, you need to open like, the syntax for combining a bunch of template literals together, it's not pretty. Okay, so I was like, why isn't this just object styles? And when I saw Glamorous, and it was like same concept of style components with just objects, it was really an easy migration. It wasn't that hard. I was like, this is going to save me so much time that I'm debugging all of these template literals right now. So the last one, I really didn't want to do it because it's basically the same thing, but when the author of the library literally tells you, dude, you can just spend 2 minutes and with find and replace, you can move to emotion because I'm not planning to support Glamorous anymore, that's when I did it. So it was really a breaking point. You gotta sleep on it. You gotta sleep on these decisions. There was an article about a guy who froze his credit cards. So literally, not freeze them, like call the bank and freeze them. He just put them in the freezer because he was like a shopping addict. And he put the cards in the freezer and he saw a nice TV, for example. And he was like, okay, I gotta go home, gonna unfreeze my cards. And if by tomorrow I still want this TV, I'm gonna go out and buy it. This, seriously, he did that. And I think that in our community, we're not doing the developer version of that enough. We're just out with our shopping carts on NPM and you're like, give me that library, give me that, give me that. Like you want stuff all the time. I saw this docs, I think it's docs with a z.io or something for documenting things. And instantly, like my stupid brain, I don't have anything to document right now. I'm like, I gotta document something. I'm gonna document my dog. That looks so pretty. Like the library looks so pretty that you wanna use it at the but you gotta sleep on the decision like the dude with the credit cards and then think whether we should get that or not. So if you let other developers figure it out first, if you're not an early adopter, maybe they're gonna come up with an abstraction on top of it or a library on top of it so you don't have to do the heavy lifting. Someone else is gonna do it for you. What I'm not saying is get too comfortable. So don't get too comfortable, just have all of these news, consume them in a way, whether it's from Reddit, Medium, newsletters, whatever. You gotta know what's going on and you gotta know that you have an alternative in case you wanna move to the other thing or if you wanna adopt the other thing. Just don't do it on the spot. So don't do this just in case learning. I think every developer has this problem when we're learning things just in case. So you see an article about SVG, you're not using SVG, and you're like, this is really nice. I should learn the entire syntax for SVG. Why? You're doing just in case learning, just in case we have a client that would want something with SVG. I think we should switch more to just in time learning. Whenever you see an opportunity, it's really close, then you should learn about the thing. Then we have another point, less abstractions. Boy, are we obsessed with these abstractions. So this is our brain on cocaine. This is like a scientific image. It's not Photoshop. We have something firing up in our brain when we're on cocaine. On sugar, it's even worse. This is like really, yeah, it's the harsh truth. So on abstractions, when it sees this Photoshop, this is not scientific. Whenever a developer sees the opportunity to move something in a file or a function or a class, you're like, I'm a genius. I'm that guy, you know? Because you think whenever you see a bit of code that looks repetitive, you instantly want to move it and abstract it away. And that abstraction can be whether it's using a library, you can be like, oh, I know that library that can help me replace this code. But I think most of the times those abstractions are going to hurt you. If you like abstract whenever you copy paste something 2 times, and then the 5th time you're going to be like, oh, that's a wrong abstraction. Now I have to go back because it doesn't fit that 5th use case. So you're going to lose more time moving back from the abstraction than you would gain time from doing the abstraction. So what I'm saying is you should copy paste something 2, 3, 5 times without feeling bad, without feeling like, oh, this hurts me when I see copy pasted code. It might be different for the 4th and 5th abstraction. So more copy paste. What can you focus on? I'm talking for 18 minutes. He's already pulled a sign. Okay. What can you focus on instead? All right, we shouldn't focus on FOMO. We shouldn't shop on NPM for crazy libraries. So what can we focus on instead as developers? Remember this gang, these guys? are kind of the reason why you're writing an app at the end. And I think we're forgetting, like day to day, we're forgetting about this part. We're like, I'm doing this for my own entertainment. And I think like in our daily work, we love to entertain ourselves during work by doing this positive procrastination. So whenever you connect Redux Saga with Redux Form to do a 2-input form, like has username and password, and you spend the entire freaking day, you feel like amazing, right? And you go home at the end of the day and you tell your wife, you're like, honey, I made this like 8 hours. And at the end of the day, you feel amazing because you entertain yourself, and your user is gonna go to his computer and is gonna be like, I can log in, nice. So they don't care. Most of the time we're doing this just for our own entertainment. What else can we focus on? If you don't want to focus on your users, there's something else. But first, let's see, what do developers want to talk about? What are some of our favorite topics? Let's see. We want to talk about editor theme, fonts, folders. Oh, are you putting your components in a nested form? No, my components, I just keep them flat level. No, mine are, like, we love to discuss this third one. And then we have like controversial tweets, tabs, spaces, webpack is hard, framework words, hacker news, semicolon. We would talk about anything except stuff that actually matters. Okay? And that point, all right, take the picture of the slide. And what we don't want to talk about. Warning, it's about to get like really uncomfortable. We don't like talking about this. We don't like this word. I'm going to mention the M word, okay? So be careful. We don't want to talk about, oh, I didn't change the slide. Okay, so it's covered. We don't want to talk about money. So we don't want to focus, we want to talk about everything else except our users and except money. So if you're a freelancer, if you're working in a company, it doesn't matter. This is a really touchy topic, and I don't think we're focusing enough in our community. We entertain ourselves by doing, I don't know, tons of things, but not discussing this at all. So not so long ago at the Web Summer Camp, they asked me, can you do like they had panel discussions for a bunch of topics, and they asked the speakers to like represent one of the tables, and they were like, can you do like a discussion about freelancing? And I was like, sure. They said, okay, after your workshop, you got to run to this other hotel, and then we're going to have tables with the signs for whatever you're going to talk about. So you got to be there. And I finished my workshop late, so I'm running to this other hotel. So I'm running. I'm sweaty there. I'm excited. We're going to talk with the developers about the freelancing, and this was my table. So the PHP table, the JavaScript, the Angular, the framework on top of PHP, like everything was full. Nobody wanted to discuss freelancing. Nobody wanted to discuss money. But what if I tell you that VS Code, Material, Pale, Purple, Midnight won't pay your rent? So messing around with themes and stuff is not going to pay your rent. The point that I'm making is right now, we're in a place, it's never been easier to make money as a developer. So if we talk about, I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years ago, if you were the guy in your town who was or the girl who was working on websites, you were a rock star back then, right? So you had to know a guy who knows a girl who knows a guy who makes websites, and that guy was making $5,000 just for one website. Now, if you want to do the same thing, you want to make a quick website, you just go to Wix or Webflow or whatever. You can just drag and drop a couple of things together and you get a website. So that person doesn't have a job anymore unless he moved on to something else. So it's not fair because we're in a position to really easily learn technology even without a CS degree. It's not fair because like doctors and lawyers, they have to bust their ass for 15 years until they see their first money, until they start working. And there's some kid who's going to learn Vue.js in 3 months, and he's going to make a startup about Tinder for cats or whatever. He's going to get more money than the freaking surgeon. And that's not fair. I think we're not using this moment, this opportunity enough. But there are wrong ways to go for it, and there are right ways. So this is a quote from my ex-colleague. He said, I'm going to read a book, and my boss is going to acknowledge my knowledge, and he's going to like promote me. This is not how promotions and money works in companies. So whenever you tell these things, whenever you think that you're going to learn something new and it's automatically going to reflect on the money you make, it's really wrong. So just by doing any of this, you're not going to get salary or a higher rate as a freelancer. What if I told you that your technical skills, most of the time, they don't have anything to do with the amount of money you're making? So an example that I love is Peter Levels from Nomad List and his brother. They started coding at the same time, and Peter Levels was focused, I wanna make this Nomad List platform. I want to have a lot of users. I want to serve them a certain purpose. So I want to learn whatever crappy PHP, jQuery code, whatever I can learn fastest, just so I can get out and show something to my users. And meanwhile, his brother, he was like, nah, I'm gonna learn Meteor. Meteor.js, okay? So after a couple of months, Peter has the crappiest code ever, probably because he's a beginner, PHP jQuery, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he has a platform up and running. He has its firm users, payments, and so on. And after a couple of months, he's brought a new Meteor. And that's it, period. And now Peter Level, as a solo developer, he's working solo on this project. He has like an open transparency page where you can see the money he's making. With PHP, with no frameworks, with jQuery, he's making alone 50K per month. So let that sink in. That's like the entire room together alone in PHP, guys. So it's not gonna be that easy in the upcoming years. So some things that we were doing not so long ago don't exist anymore. And it's like some older jobs that got replaced. So if you didn't know, like in factories, there was a guy who was reading the newspaper just because they didn't have radio. So he was entertainment, he was the rock star of the factory. He was like, I'm gonna keep this job forever. And then someone put a radio and he's gone. But he couldn't predict how things were gonna go, okay? He couldn't predict that the radio is gonna come. And we, as developers, can predict how things are going. And we know that it's not gonna be that easy in the future to mess around with CSS all day and get a salary. It's not gonna be that easy. If you wanna prove, this is a recent video by Microsoft where they have like visual recognition and you can instantly get mockups. So this visual recognition can recognize whatever you're drawing and you instantly get a page or an app or whatever. So it's working like this now, but it's Microsoft. So maybe they're gonna add Clippy and then you can tell Clippy whatever you wanna do and then you don't have a job anymore. Okay, maybe not Clippy, but they have Alexa. So I can totally imagine just some developer or a project manager having Alexa on their desk and just telling Alexa what to do instead of you. So it's going to be like, suggest me a couple of responsive menu styles for the header. Or Alexa, move that 3 pixels to the right. Alexa, move that 5 pixels to the left. Move that 4 pixels. And unlike the designer on your team, she's not going to bitch about moving the pixels. She's going to do it, and she's going to do it in a perfect way. So your job is gone. Unless you want to work on legacy systems. And this is pretty good. So this is pretty good. These are the most highly paid developers right now in the entire industry. So people who are working on Pascal or COBOL or Angular 1, they're getting shit ton of money. So this is my favorite company ever. Someone told me about this company. They're called COBOL, Cowboys. And their tagline is not our first rodeo because probably they're 150 years in the business of web development. And I just wanted to click that button, meet the company. I was like, I gotta meet this company. Probably they're old and bam, you click and they are. So these are senior developers, not you guys, okay? This is their junior. He's joining like next week. Can you imagine the perks these guys get? Like you're like, oh, we have a PlayStation and a foosball table. These guys get probably their blood changed every couple of weeks because they cannot afford to lose one on the team. So on a serious note, I mean this was completely serious, but more serious note. I know a person who's doing courses and materials and workshops in Angular 1 and he's still doing it and he's like making a lot of money from it because he found a niche, he focused on it and he's just completely focused on Angular 1. And I'm like, this dude is really smart. And I just messaged him, why don't you just jump to the React hype? And this was 1.5 years ago maybe. And I was like, do you know how big Angular 1 is in Asia? So like those huge companies cannot afford to suddenly migrate to whatever comes next. So they need someone to support their systems in whatever they spend time for. Like maybe they spend an year working in Angular. Now they need like support, materials, courses, and so on. So he just focused on that, and he made a lot of money. And I was like, yeah, sure, a lot of money. And then he posted a lot of pictures from his sports cars. And this is, I know Redux Saga, and this is what I travel with. So yeah. So you gotta find your niche, you gotta stick to it. And point number 3 is a lot of people, there are a lot of smart people who are trying to just branch out, and there are a lot of people who they're like an expert in the thing. So in your company you have like the TypeScript guy, and you have the Redux girl, and you have the people who are experts in something, but some of them they don't do point 3. So then I think there's a huge opportunity if you're an expert in a niche, just make it profitable. So let's summarize the entire talk. We gotta stop seeking external approval whenever we do something. We gotta stop seeking answers in other people's projects, repos, and so on. We gotta stop feeling insecure about the code because nobody actually knows what they're doing. And we gotta do less abstractions and more copy-paste. We gotta feel more comfortable with just copy-pasting things around. And we gotta recognize the breaking points whenever we move from point A to point B. We gotta know that FOMO, fear of missing out, is just a side effect of the wrong priorities. So when your priorities are not fixed on something that actually matters, you're gonna have FOMO that you're missing out on something. And yeah, focus on your users or focus on your money. It's going to be better than focusing on your VS Code theme. And trust me, you're going to be just fine without Redux Helicopter 7.4. So, grazie mille. You can find more information about me here. Thank you.